I want to take you on a journey. It's going to be personal, it may be emotional, it certainly will be for me. I will take you back to my youth in Whitchurch in Cardiff, where I grew up. Our playground was the Canal in Whitchurch, which now I look at it in these days, I certainly wouldn't let my grandchildren down there on their own. But I was allowed to play down there with my dog and some of my friends, and we were all about 6 or 7. Along the journey, I'm going to be joined by my friend Pete, who was best man at my wedding, and we'll be chatting about our various views that we remember from the canal. On the journey, we will come across Whitchurch Hospital. It was built to cope with the casualties from the First World War. It then became an asylum for people that really they couldn't treat in any other hospitals. They were dumped there. Unfortunately, and this is quite emotional for myself, my mother was incarcerated there for about 15 years. It was a very sad building for me. It holds no fond memories, and my story today will tell you and include a patient from the hospital that basically changed my life. On a much lighter note, we'll come across, I'm told we will, a memoriam for an old friend, Keith Whedon. Keith had when he spoke to you, he spoke in a deep bass. When he sang with a tenor's voice that only the angels really are blessed with. A great chap, and I hope to see the bench that was somewhere along our journey here. It's in the memory of a very good boy, a very good boy. I should warn you that some of this may be disturbing, but I sincerely hope that you'll join me on this emotional trip down memory lane. Well, Pete, here we are, 50 years later on, back in our little playground.
50 years? Is it that long?
Well, I know you're a bit younger than me, but please respect your elders.
Fair enough.
It's quite amazing. Now it's all called the Glamorganshire Canal, but I used to call it the Canal and the Long Woods.
Yeah, exactly. That's how my mum described it.
It was for me. It still hopefully will hold fond memories, but I suppose we'll wait and see. What about yourself?
All this water scares me to death.
Yeah, I suppose that was a worry. Should we carry on and see what lies beyond?
Yep.
I think I may have a little surprise down here for you, but we'll wait and see. You were from the village, by the shops, etc., and I wasn't allowed to walk down there, but I could come down here on my own with my dog or friends to play. And now I look back and I think, well, this is quite dangerous down here, yet for you it would have been quite safe in the village, I would have thought.
It's strange, isn't it? I suppose it's all about perception. You know, this is on your doorstep. Everyone was used to coming down here.
They were all good times down here for me. It was our playground. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you, to be honest. This was the tadpole sort of little bay that we dug out. Myself and Whitey, my next door neighbour, who was my sort of adopted grandfather, because I didn't have one at the time. Although we will see his graveyard a little bit later. But yeah, we used to put the algae would form in there, and then I could just stop in with my little net, pick up the tadpoles, and had a full jam jar. Pretty impressive stuff, eh?
So what did you do with them once you put them in the jam jar?
Well, I took them home to my mum then, and then that's a grey area. I never really found out what happened to them after that.
I'm assuming she flushed them down the toilet.
I expect she flushed them down the toilet, unfortunately. All that hard work.
Yeah.
But it stood the period of time.
Certainly has. Classic bit of vandalism.
And it could have been 50 years ago. Here it is now, Pete. It's this tree here. You see with the branch that's going like a U-turn upwards?
Yeah.
Now the rope used to be around there, and we used to swing out. All this sort of holly stuff around there wasn't there. I didn't think these two trees were there, but they may have been young and youthful. But you wanted to try and get as far over the water as you could. Well, let's go and have a chat with Keith. Right, now Pete, this must be it. It's the last bench on this track.
Fingers
This must
crossed.
be Keithy Whedon's. There we go, Keith. We come back to see you.
The boys from Whitchurch Chip Shop. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la.
Yeah.
1 and 6 we bought our chips.
So this is where the barge would have fitted in. It's quite thin, as you can see, can't you? It's
Well, they fit long, narrow boats. Don't
yeah, they were long, narrow boats. And of course, they'd probably be tied up somewhere, but the old capstans are gone, and then just pulled through with the horses, maybe.
Yeah. I can't ever remember this.
No, it wasn't so nicely laid out there. This wasn't here. You just crossed over there, which was pretty tricky at the time.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, this will be interesting. Well, this takes us into a different area now, Pete. You'll remember this is where we used to have the picnic for the summer walks. I don't know whether you stopped there, but for me, this is where the story really starts. This is where it all took place, just on this tree. That was where I was sat. I mean, it's changed my life totally, to be honest with you. This guy came across from down there. He approached me. He was pleasant. He said good morning. Then he started to talk about the jar of tadpoles that I had. Smoothed the dog, asked the dog's name. Quite a nice chap, I thought. And then he asked me to go and see some frogs. He showed me a secret area where there were some frogs. And he sort of started just getting a little bit aggressive, you know? I could feel this warmth in my body, and then he grabbed my arm like that and he said, come on, I'll show you now, come on. And I was saying, no, my mum, told me not to go off with strangers and all of this. And he was having none of it, and his grip was getting tighter, and he was pulling me more. The heat in my body was sort of getting quite intense, and I could feel it. And then the dog went for him, just by there, went for his leg, tried to bite him. The chap pushed him off, and the dog went for him again, and he ran off. And he ran down to this path here, and then if you have a look, the path, you can just see it disappears into the wood there. It's quite a steep climb, but he ran that way. I ran into the opening that I knew was down there where we used to have our picnics. And and I was in open air then. I felt relaxed. The dog had chased him so far, but then come back to me. The heat was still in my body, but it felt more pleasant rather than intense burning. And it all started there after such a pleasant walk in the morning. From there on in, the whole day went downhill. You've got to imagine now that I'm running through here and I'm not looking back. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. What has just happened in my mind? I'm not even thinking anything logical, except I had to get to this open space. I knew as soon as I got around this little area here, it was going to be flat, it was going to be open. This is where we had our picnics. This is, for me, from the horrendous experience I've just had there, this was my safe zone that I felt I could scream, I could shout, but I wasn't engulfed by all the trees and feeling sort of cramped into the little small area. And then while I was here, the dog comes running up behind me, and he's come through all this bracken and stuff, and there's no sign of the patient, but the dog comes up and he's here, and the intensity of the heat in my body has now disappeared. It's just I feel warm, I feel pleasant, I feel at ease. You know, I've got away. Right, Pete, this is where he ran off to. Although I wasn't here, I didn't see it, but I've been up here twice since, and you'll see it's quite a steep rise in the path that must have taken the breath out of him, I'm sure. But this is the bit that I'm going to find a bit hard to explain to you. But if you see the tree just up by there, the one that's just hanging down with all the growth around it, well, just below it there's a branch that comes off, and that's where my friend, who I knew, where the patient abducted him, and he was hanging from that tree. He abducted him 2 days after he tried to abduct me, and it made the South Wales Echo on the third day after my attempted abduction, and that was when my mother gave me a right rollicking for coming up here on my own. And for about 2 years after that, I wasn't allowed here on my own, but I would come out with some friends. Yeah. Never on our own again, never on our own. So he's made it to the top. Now he must have been pretty exhausted by the time he got to here. You can either go up there or here. That way you run into the field, whereas this way you carry on through the woods. So Pete, this is the tree down here that we used to congregate around as a big group. We used to have the swing there hanging down, and then it was trying to swing out the furthest over the canal. But there could be 10, there could be 20 of us, or there could be 2 or 3 of us. It was always, this tree was the main attraction of the whole canal for us. Just come along here now, you'll see the gully way down, then right at the bottom, what you'll see is that tree right in the centre that's got all the ivy on it, goes up quite a long way. That's where the abductor hung himself. Now it's very relevant that he wanted to be seen. He was overhanging the canal, so people had to walk past him. He was going to be found more or less immediately. But ironically, and it makes you think, what is that? That's 40 yards away from where we all used to congregate.
Yeah.
There was a swing already there. He could have hung himself on that swing, but he went to the effort to put a swing there just to make sure he was seen. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what was going on in his head? But that, for me, was the end of the story in the woods, but there's more to come now. This is, as I say, the end of the hospital now, the very far corner. If you remember, the cricket pitch was in there about 100 yards. But this was the security. You can see what's left of it. That was the only fence that prevented the patients getting out, and of course, us kids, getting in. Now, it's had quite a bit of wear over the years. It wouldn't stop anything now. But that was all the security. Further on down, they step it up a bit. They got the bigger wall, but this was definitely a weak link. Here we are, Pete, Whitchurch Hospital. Do you remember the Sevens tournaments we used to play up here?
Oh yes, yeah, some happy days.
Yeah, there were some good days. The one in particular, I think it was, you'll probably know better than me, back in '76. It was that long hot summer.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
It's my auntie and uncle came up from Cornwall to see me play, along with my 2 cousins. And my mother and father came along as well. They'd never seen me play before. I lasted 6 minutes, and then I got knocked out and carried off. I don't remember very much about it at all, but I do remember waking up somewhere very unexpected, and I mean very unexpected. So here we are, Pete. I was knocked out at the rugby. My father puts me in the car, brings me up here, and I end up in a graveyard. He had brought my auntie and uncle up to see the new gravestone that the family had all contributed to. You see, my nan used to be in one of the graves up there. We brought them together, put them into this one central grave for both of them, and the family bought the headstone. So he was pretty proud of this, I must admit. Not something I'd like to do if I'd go for a weekend somewhere on holiday, but it was what he wanted. So Pete, we've left the church in Lisvane. We're now at the church at Rudry, and you'll see one of the first headstones. You see the rich on there?
Yeah, yeah.
So we did some rubbings off there, and it does show up that we then have AR, so I assume that's Richards. But if you have a look at the top, it looks like two T's, but it could be TH. It could be Thomas Richards. But
makes sense, Thomas, doesn't it?
we haven't come to a conclusion on that yet. That's still a bit of a mystery. There are so many gravestones in here with the name Richards on there.
Yeah.
If we walk down here now, we'll see what I think is my twin sister's, the remains of my twin sister's little headstone. It's just where the wall is over there, and it's on the floor. There's no grave, it's in between two graves, because the grave was next door. In what was my nan's cottage, she was buried in her back garden along with 3 or 4 other graves. This, I believe, is the remains of my twin sister's headstone. It was up against the wall over there. You'll see that that wall is quite new. The grave was actually in the garden just beyond. When these new houses were built, the graves were moved out and were put in here, but they were just chucked in. You can see there, it's things, and I think that the rubbings we got off there indicated that it could be another Richards, but it was only a small grave.
So do you think that the stones have been just moved, or the contents?
I don't know. I really haven't investigated that because I don't want to impinge on people's privacy. I don't know. I don't honestly know. I don't know how we find that out unless we...
No,
but I don't want to even think about that.
That's fair enough.
But so that's as far as I've got with my twin sister. I think there's something there. In fact, as we speak now, I feel the warmth, her warmth entering my body, which is really weird. I felt it earlier down in the canal. I'm feeling it now very strongly. So, who knows, eh? Who knows?
It's been with you before, hasn't it?
Yep. Yep. Pete, I want to thank you for helping me out today.
Yeah.
Much
Cheers,
appreciated, mate.
My pleasure.
Much appreciated. It's been a journey, that.
Yeah, yeah.